All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here today. We're doing the video that we always do right before the new sets come out, which is building early deck lists. So we're going to be doing that today. We're on PokemonMeta.com. It's kind of the best place to go to build decks early. They just always kind of immediately upload the images for the new cards even before they release to the game. So shout out to PokemonMeta.com. That's what we're going to be using to build decks in today's video. Before we get into it though, I gotta let you guys know that you gotta go register for PMPT number 22 is what it is. PMPT 22, I guess, is where we're at. So this is gonna be the first tournament, the first new tournament of the new metagame of the new season. I'm very, very excited about it. We have $200 cash in the prize pool, guys. This is this Saturday, February 28th at noontime. Another interesting tidbit about this tournament is that we're trying out a ban for the first time in a while. We're going to be banning Lucky Ice Pop this weekend. Maybe it sticks. Maybe we continue to ban it. Maybe not. I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and try it out. And we've talked about why we're banning Lucky Ice Pop. Some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. But I think we're going to try it out this weekend as well. So anyway, noontime Saturday, February 28th. Come and tune in to the tournament and come and register, right? So link down in the description below. Definitely go do that. Okay, so let's get into the deck builder here. What I've been doing in these videos is just kind of doing it live, like building the decks live, which is what we're gonna kind of do today. Now, interestingly enough, in the trailer for the new set, Paldean Wonders, not many cards were showcased. We did highlight everything that they did showcase, but really there's only two Pokemon that I think makes sense to kind of build around, which is what we're going to be doing in today's video. We're going to be building with Gholdengo EX and the new Meowscarada EX. And we might, kind of tech in some of the other new stuff, but those are the two decks that we're going to kind of focus on today. We're going to theory craft. We're going to, figure out maybe what we want to do here. Now, as always, the elephant in the room is that we don't have the full set list, so there might be, some other new cards that release that kind of pair well with these two. We just don't know yet. But under the context and the pretense of knowing what's in the metagame right now and the cards we have available to us, that's what we're going to be using. A couple of interesting trainer cards as well. We have Arvin as a supporter. We have Meowscarada as a stadium. So that's some interesting stuff. Nemona with Palmont is also interesting. We might be able to build that in this video. But anyway, let's just kind of dive right into it. I think the first thing that I want to focus on is actually Meowscarada. And this is something that I think a lot of people are very excited about. The grass archetype is something a lot of people are hoping for to be buffed and to be a little bit more relevant. As we know, the current metagame right now dominated by Hydreigon and Mega Absol. So, any new sort of grass deck or new grass type strategy has a lot of potential to potentially do well into Hydreigon. Meowscarada itself is a very unique card, not like anything we've really seen before in Pokemon Pocket. It's a stage 2, non-mega, so it's just a 2-prize stage 2 Pokemon, and there's not too many of those in the game right now. I guess like Greninja EX would be one example, so it doesn't have any abilities, 160 HP, which is quite low for a stage 2 Pokemon, but keep in mind we do have access to Lily on this thing, and Erica's, and of course Leaf Cape to bring it up to 190 HP. The other thing to mention here about this Meowscarada is that we actually have the old Meowscarada non-EX card that used to be super relevant in the metagame at one point. It's actually quite a strong card, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. This Meowscarada has 2 attacks, a single energy attack cost, Flower Trick, which is super unique. We love it. We choose any spot on the board, whether it's on the bench or in the active spot, and then on the end of your opponent's next turn, you deal 70 damage to the Pokemon in that spot. This attack's very unique. It's got a very unique sort of sense to it. This is actually better in my mind than just dealing 70 damage to any Pokemon for 1 energy, although it is similar. So at first glance, this Meowscarada to me is going to play a lot like the baby Decidueye I say baby, but the non-EX Decidueye that people play in, the Decidueye decks, right? That Decidueye, I think, has 130 HP, also a stage 2, not an EX card, but it just does 70 to anything on the board. So Meowscarada is similar to that. It's just a little bit different. So we can do 70 to any Pokemon on the board. We have a little bit more HP, retreat cost of 1, but we also have Solar Beam, which is just 80 to the active. Now, 80 to the active is a pretty big deal. It's just a little bit more than 70. So if we are targeting the active for 2 energies, we can kind of make that work, which is going to be pretty cool. And this is somewhat relevant. We're going to hit things like Mega Absol and Hydreigon for weakness in the active for 80 damage. But what's really cool about Meowscarada is kind of the guarantee that we can lead the 70 into the 80 without any of that damage being healed, right? Because it happens at the end of your opponent's next turn. So whether we're attacking the active or the bench, your opponent ends their turn and then they take the damage. Now, This is going to be better in some ways, worse in some ways, right? So we're not immediately dealing damage, which means if we do target a basic Pokemon and our opponent evolves it on their next turn, we're not going to be getting the KO. So that's one downside to it. But the upside, right, is that we can immediately deal the damage and then it goes to our turn, so we can Cyrus up a bench Pokemon if we target it, and our opponent doesn't have the opportunity to heal any of that damage. So it's kind of a guaranteed 150 damage combo in over 2 turns onto any Pokemon you want. So I think Cyrus is going to make a lot of sense with Meowscarada. And of course, we do have, you know, the other Meowscarada package cards that came back when we had the non-EX Meowscarada. So let's talk about this, right? So we have Sprigatito. I'm actually going to pull these cards up here so you can maybe see them a little bit better. Let's do this. So we have Sprigatito. Sprigatito, this guy right here. So this is a pretty interesting basic. The new Sprigatito, I don't think is better than this, but this is Cry for Help. So you get to put a random grass Pokemon from your deck into your hand for 1 energy. So on the scenarios where we're going second, maybe Sprigatito can kind of, you know, help us out a little bit and pull a grass Pokemon out of our deck. This is always a pretty useful effect. It's probably better than the new one that we're getting, which I think does 20 for 1. Maybe not though. Maybe the damage is nice in some ways. I don't know. We'll have to, because this is weakness. I think the thing is, if we go second and we have a Sprigatito in the active, the difficult part about that is that if we are going up against a Hydreigon or something else that can attack on their second turn going first, which to be fair is really only Hydreigon, then, you know, we're just going to get KO'd by the Hydreigon. So I don't know if the damage is really that relevant. Maybe our opponent could get lucky and they could brick, but for the most part, I'm kind of thinking we still play the Cry for Help Sprigatito. We're going to play 2 of those. This is just my early deck draft here. We're going to, of course, add the new Meowscaradas in here. So we'll add 2, I think, Meowscarada EXs, but I do want to add one of the non-EX Meowscarada, because this is going to be a really valuable card, I believe, into this deck list for, you know, kind of the reason, because it fills the gaps that Meowscarada EX struggles with, because, you know, there's a lot of different matchups in the game, but the Meowscarada EX is only dealing 80 damage maximum. So you can, you know, attack early with the low energy attack cost, and you can hit the bench. So a lot of really great aspects of it, but the damage is pretty capped. So if you go up against something that does play a ton of healing or has a ton of HP, of course, Meowscarada is going to struggle. This is where this Meowscarada comes in handy, because against EX cards, so that includes Mega Pokemon, really anything that's going to have a ton of HP, we deal 130 damage. This has 140, by the way. Which is also pretty decent. So you can Leaf Cape this as well. So this is going to be kind of the card we can use to potentially just deal more damage into matchups where we need to deal more damage, right? Against maybe other Mega decks, you know, Meowscarada can come in or clean up the game here and hit for a nice 130 damage, right? So I think that's really relevant. It kind of fills some of the gaps that Meowscarada EX has. However, I will say most of the time you probably want to go with Meowscarada EX, especially when you consider the Hydreigon matchup, because this Meowscarada is not going to be very good at all into Hydreigon. You're only hitting for 60 or 80, I guess, with weakness, but not the full effect, because, you know, Hydreigon's not an EX card, but we'll play one of these. Now, the question here for sure is, like, what is the actual, you know, like, what are the cards we're going to play with Meowscarada? That, I think, is definitely, like, the big question. Sprigatito in the active, I don't think will be that bad. The single energy attack cost means we can rare candy turn 2 even if we go first and get that first attack off. So, you know, going first, leading Sprigatito is not going to be that bad, because we can rare candy into Meowscarada. Now, we could play the middle evolution, Floragato, but we don't have a good Floragato in the game right now. It's important to note, because the Floragato that we have available to us, this guy isn't very good. It does 40 for 2, which is not good. Now, if this was 40 for 1, I would say definitely play this card, because then you could 1-hit KO a Dino, hitting for weakness, right? With 1 energy, but it's 2 energies, which means it's just never really worth playing. Maybe if Chingling is really common, you might want to play it, but for the most part, I don't really feel too strongly about it. That's kind of my vibe here. Now, I do think we want some other basic Pokemon in the deck, but maybe not. Like, it might be kind of one of those Decidueye things where maybe we just actually only play these cards, which would be kind of funny. But I do think that there's some merit to playing some other stuff. I think that Chingling could be a pretty decent partner here. Sorry, we need to type it in down here, not up there. I think Chingling could be an interesting partner here, just as a consistent leadoff card. Now, the difficulty with this is that, of course, you don't want Chingling to go down and then Meowscarada EX to go down and then you lose the game, right? So I think if we play, like, more than one Chingling, or if we're playing multiple Chinglings, like, it's difficult. Like, we might want to play double non-EX Meowscarada, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of playing sort of a new strategy deck list, right? And that's not going to help us a lot into Hydreigon. Chingling is also really good into Hydreigon. So let's just add a couple of Chinglings for now. This gives us double Sprigatito, double Chingling lead 7 total Pokemon, which is still a pretty low number. And then the one thing that I actually want to do here is play Ogerpon, because I think that Ogerpon here, the Grass EX Ogerpon, is a pretty valuable card in general. We don't really have a lot of ways to accelerate energies to this Ogerpon. However, this particular card is going to stop one thing in particular that I really like, which is, of course, any special conditions on all of our Pokemon, as long as they have grass energies attached. And as we know, Hydreigon, plays Poison Barb Nihilego, so that's something we want to be able to deal with pretty easily. Not only that, but there's Sleep Swablues. There's other status condition stuff floating around, in the active metagame. Also, we can still Leaf Cape this, go to 160 HP in the attack here, although not very useful into Hydreigon, is going to be something we can utilize because Meowscarada itself has a pretty low energy attack cost. So I think one Teal Mask Ogerpon makes a little bit of sense. We're going to throw it in here, and that's 8 total Pokemon. So we're going to not run any middle evolution, but I do like this Pokemon lineup here. This leaves 12 cards left in the deck, so we have to strategize how we're going to build out this deck list to be consistent. I think that there's some things that we could do here, but again, we're somewhat limited for space, just inherently. I'm going to go double research, double Pokeball, as we always should. Now, I personally really do like double Cyrus. I don't know if we really need Sabrina in the deck list, but maybe we do, because Sabrina is also pretty good into things like Hydreigon and Suicune, which are definitely going to be popular matchups. So preemptively, I'm going to go one Cyrus, one Sabrina. Double Cyrus might just be better. We need to keep that in mind. We also need 2 rare candies. Now we only have 4 cards left in the deck, which makes things quite difficult. I do think Leaf Cape is something we want to play, so let's go ahead and maybe throw in Leaf Capes here as well, because I think we're definitely going to want probably a couple of Leaf Capes. Even though these Leaf Capes don't work for Chingling, they're going to be really nice on all of our other Pokemon, which just don't have that much HP. So Leaf Cape is an interesting example here. This only brings us 18 cards left in the deck, and I'm trying to think of like any other like mission critical stuff. This is very standard as far as the deck goes. I'm just trying to think. I mean, we have 2 spaces left. Again, I'm really wanting to lean into the Hydreigon matchup specifically. I want our deck to be good into Hydreigon because that is, again, kind of, I think, the calling card for a deck like this. So I think one Copycat is fine, just to kind of give the deck a little bit more consistency. I don't think we need Quick Grow Extract because we're definitely just running Rare Candy. Copycat, just a really good consistency card, so I'm going to run one Copycat, and then, potentially we play like some Disruption. I'm trying to think of things that are good into Hydreigon. I don't know if there's anything else really worth running. You could play a May or something like that, or a Pokemon Communications. That could be interesting. But honestly, I'm thinking, how many supporters do we have? Really not that many. I'm going to play, what I actually kind of like here, instead of running Disruption, is playing one of the new Arven cards. I think that this could be a really good deck for Arven. And let's pull up Arven so you guys can see it, because Arven here is actually a really useful card in a lot of different decks. So Arven says you flip a coin. If heads, put a random item card from your deck into your hand. And if you flip tails, you put a random tool card from your deck into your hand. So I think that Arven is going to be exceptionally useful, in fact, in really any deck that is playing both rare candies and tool cards, which effectively is a lot of different decks. Suicune plays Giant Capes, rare candy. Hydreigon plays Poison Barb, rare candy. So I think Arven is going to be a really decent one-of in a lot of decks. I'm going to go ahead, just throw an Arven in here, a very basic deck list. There are some scenarios where maybe we can cut a Chingling, or maybe cut 2 Chinglings. Maybe we don't need Ogerpon. Like, there's some different stuff that we could kind of squeeze in here with Meowscarada, but this is kind of my initial draft, is just, just running Chingling, maybe Baby Meowscarada here. And then, because even if Chingling goes down, then you could go into Baby Meowscarada, then go into Meowscarada EX, or, if you go first, you might just kind of get turn 2 Meowscarada out anyway, and Chingling's probably pretty safe in most matchups. So I like this deck. I really do. If you go second, you can always retreat into Sprigatito. If the item lock's not relevant, you can cry for help. A lot of different opportunities here. Leaf Cape, I think, is going to be really nice. And honestly, I think Meowscarada is going to be kind of the core strategy of the deck list. Everything in here has a retreat cost of 1 as well, which I really like. Now, the only downside here is that if you did play Ogerpon and you leaded, if this was your opening Pokemon, that's going to be not great. It's just not really the Pokemon we want in the active. We'd rather have Sprigatito or Chingling in the early game, but we have 5 basics and 4 of them are Pokemon we don't mind leading off with. So that in mind, I actually really like this list. Mesa Gosa is also an interesting card. There's definitely a scenario where maybe you just cut, you cut the Ogerpon and you could play you know, I don't know, you could play like Meowscarada, because Arven and Meowscarada do kind of go together quite well. This also kind of fulfills the stadium card in the deck, which you might just want to play in some matchups. Meowscarada, I think, is also a very useful card that we might see a lot of play. This is also just going to be really nice for evolution decks. Once during each player's turn, that player may flip a coin, and if heads, that player puts a random Pokemon from their deck into their hand. So this is one of the few ways that we can actually take out evolution Pokemon from our deck and put them into our hand. Because if we have all of our basics, then, of course, you know, Meowscarada will grab an evolution Pokemon. So, you know, in this deck particularly, Meowscarada could be really nice because the probability of grabbing one of your Meowscaradas is actually quite high. At the very least, it'll be a 50-50 on the coin flip, right? So Meowscarada plus Arven. Arven can help you grab, you know, leaf capes, rare candies, Meowscarada to grab your evolution Pokemon. We have Copycat for draws. You know, I do like this. You know, if Ogerpon isn't something that people think is that valuable, then maybe you just go kind of that direction, I think. But this is going to be a really aggressive deck, and I really do like Meowscarada. I think it has a lot of potential. Again, I think that predominantly we want to focus on the Hydreigon matchup, you know, kind of more than anything. So this is like my first initial draft. Can I zoom in on this so you guys can see it? Probably not very easily. But that's kind of the first deck draft of Meowscarada, just my initial opinions. Now we might get something else new in the set that hasn't been announced yet that might be really useful for Meowscarada or any of the other decks. We just don't really know what those might be yet, but comment down below if you have any other ideas. I'm genuinely pretty interested in seeing kind of, you know, what we're able to do in this with these new cards. Next up, though, let's build Gholdengo. There are a couple of ways that we can build with Gholdengo. Let's talk about it, though. This is 150 HP Stage 1 Pokemon. It's got the Spending Rush attack. It's weak to fire, metal type. 1 metal energy. One of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random for each metal energy attached to this Pokemon, and then for each time a Pokemon was chosen, you deal 40 damage to it. So this is kind of like a combination of things like, you know, the promo Rayquaza EX or Celebi EX, kind of mixed with like Wugtrio. It's kind of everything thrown into one. This actually could be pretty strong. There's a lot of tools that we have in the game to really set up a Pokemon like this and kind of just go a little crazy, quite frankly. So let's talk about this particular card here. Now, I actually just want to check something. I just want to check because I don't want to go crazy here, and I don't. Let me read Aegislash real quick. Okay, so this is Aegislash does plus 30 to your opponent's active. I didn't know if it said active Pokemon. I had to check that because if this was plus 30 to your opponent's Pokemon, then that means every Pokemon that that Melmetal selects would be, of course, plus 30, and that would be a little bit too crazy. So anyway, Gholdengo I think can be built 2 different ways. And both ways, I think, are actually somewhat reasonable in the metagame. This seems like a very RNG card, but I think the core strategy with Gholdengo is, of course, setting it up, you know, on the bench, getting it piled up with energies, and then coming in and attacking. Now, the difference between Gholdengo and some other things in the metagame here is that you should be able to live 1 attack when you come in almost all the time. Not only do we have 150 HP, but we have, you know, a lot of damage reduction cards. So, you know, things like Hydreigon, you know, might not be able to KO you, or things like Suicune or anything really that's, you know, actively played in the metagame, which means, you know, if Gholdengo comes in, it's spending rushes. If we have, you know, even 3 or 4, sometimes maybe 5 energies on this thing when we come into attack, you know, we might not win the game outright, but the second time we get this attack off, that might be a win condition in a lot of decks, right? And most decks in the game right now have a pretty full bench, you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting card. I think this could be very, very good into Altaria. That's kind of what I'm feeling about this. If Meowscarada was put into the game to do well into Hydreigon, I think Gholdengo might have been put into the game to do well into Altaria. That's just a theory. Just a game theory. But anyway, let's talk about this. Let's build Gholdengo, because I think there's 2 different ways that we can play Gholdengo. So let's build the deck out like so. Now, I don't think they gave us the Gimme Ghoul yet. What's interesting is we do actually have a non-EX Gholdengo, which I think is actually a pretty similar card. Let me pull this up because I wanna see what this card's all about. Gholdengo, this guy. This does 50, flip a coin for each. Okay, so this is Celebi, but it's steel type, so only to the active. I don't think we're playing this. Man, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think we're playing this Gholdengo if I had to just guess. Which is fine. The cool thing about both ways that we're going to be playing Gholdengo, well, actually, hold on. We also need to check Gimme Ghoul. Do we have, I think we have a couple of Gimme Ghouls in the game, right? Gimme Ghoul? Gimme Ghoul? I guess we only have 1 Gimme Ghoul. Is that true? Gimme Ghoul. I guess we only have this one. What is this? Chestaflage. Nice. Flip a coin. If heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. Yeah, I don't think we really ever want Gimmighoul in the active, quite frankly. Now, the thing with Gimmighoul is it has a retreat cost of 1, but I think the energies are going to matter a lot with Gholdengo. So that's kind of the difficult part. You know, is do we really want, Gimmighoul in the active? We might be able to get away with just playing one Gimmighoul, which I know sounds crazy, but trust me, like, we really don't want to lead off with this thing. We really don't, because it really hinders the deck. Is that crazy to play one Gimmighoul? I don't know. We'll just put 2 for now, but that might be something to keep in mind. Anyway, now what Pokemon are we going to pair with Gimmighoul? I think there's 2 obvious answers here, and you guys can kind of pick and choose which one you would rather play. The obvious answer, I think, for a lot of people is our old good friend here, Dialga. Now, I don't actually love Dialga, and I'll say this in the sense about this. The thing with Dialga is that it's really, really bad going first. This is something that is just not going to be super effective in a lot of different games, and I think this is why kind of Dialga EX just hasn't seen much play. Metallic Turbo does deal 30 damage and generates 2 metal energies. But the issue here is that it's a double energy attack cost, which means this Pokemon is pretty slow. And if we play Dialga, not only do we need it in the active spot to start the game, but we also have to go second, or else we probably might not even be able to get 1 attack off. Well, at least we'll get 1 attack off pretty much always. So maybe Dialga is worth playing, actually. That's a good question. Maybe it's fine, you know? Like, I mean, because the thing is, if we wait 2 turns to attack with Dialga, we're generating 2 energies anyway, so it wouldn't have been any different. It's just sort of soaking up damage in the active spot. So, you know, maybe Dialga makes sense. If we're not playing Dialga EX, what we are playing is actually the new Meowth. And what we see here, not Payday, geez. What's the new Meowth here? Meowth is this guy here. So the new one here. This is one that just came out with Carefree Steps. So this is the one that's immune half the time from damage. So I think that Meowth might even be better. I don't know. It's a really good question. The thing with Meowth is that you're going to want the other Meowth, like always. Like, you kind of have to go Meowth into Meowth, which isn't bad. But again, I think that if we're playing this Meowth, you kind of have to play Protective Poncho to protect Gholdengo from bench damage. So let's build this out with Dialga first, and then we'll build a, of course, what am I talking about? We'll build a Meowth version, so we'll go from here. Double Research, double Pokeball. We have double Gimmighoul, double Gholdengo, double Dialga. Again, maybe it's worth cutting a Gimmighoul, quite frankly, just to not lead with it, because we don't need double Gholdengos. There's really no ever reason to use 2 of them. The reason you would play 2 evolutions is because, you just want to have it, because we don't have any other way to search for basic Pokemon. But this is a scenario where you might honestly just play 1 Gimmighoul and double Gholdengo and just have a dead card in your deck. But anyway, let's just start off with having double Gimmighoul and double Dialga. Of course, we want to lead Dialga. If we don't here, we're going to want like an X speed, quite frankly. But anyway, we'll get to that. I don't think we need Cyrus. Sabrina's an interesting card just to kind of stall out in the early game, because Dialga sometimes is quite slow. I am going to run at least 1 copycat here. I don't think we need, we obviously don't need rare candies. I don't think we need Rocky Helmets or Giant Cape. I think there's a definite scenario where possibly just keeping Dialga alive is going to be really important. This to me seems like a Lucky Ice Pop deck, actually, now that I think about it, which is pretty funny. This is going to be such a generic strategy, but honestly, I think it's kind of goated. We could play Training or Starting Planes, but I don't think Training Arena is ever worth playing, by the way. For somebody that's mentioning that, like, if we pull up Training Arena, the reason you don't play this card is because it's only to the active. So if you do happen to select the active Pokemon with Gholdengo, it'll only deal +10 once. So it doesn't like multiply. So a Training Arena is not worth it. Aegislash, as we checked, not worth playing either. So if anyone's curious. So I think we play like double Ice Pop. And you know what I also want to play is Metal Core Barrier. I actually do want to play Metal Core Barrier. Because I think that this is any way that we can keep Dialga in the active for longer, I think is going to be really relevant. Now, if we play Metal Core Barrier, we're not going to play Protective Poncho, which means, of course, we are susceptible to benched damage, which is not great, into like Greninja decks. Like, setup strategies are a little bit suspect. So that's maybe one inherent downside to the deck list here. Let's add a second copycat just to draw cards. What else do we want? I mean, we're playing double Barrier, playing a Lucky Ice Pop. Maybe we don't play Barrier. Can Dialga really survive? I mean, nothing's really won at KOing it. Maybe Barrier just doesn't even make sense. Like, maybe we do just play Poncho, actually. Maybe we do play Protective Poncho. just because bench damage is still common. We could do like one Poncho. Wow, let's just play double Poncho. Why not? I mean, this Gholdengo is really susceptible on the bench. Like Lucky Ice Pops here, Ponchos on a Gholdengo. The Ice Pops really, I think this is going to be a deck that really does benefit from the RNG of Ice Pop, because if we can just live an extra attack, that's +2 energies on Gholdengo, which is a big deal. Is there anything in the game that can consistently one-hit KO Gholdengo is the question. Probably not much. I'm trying to, like, I just don't know. I guess like a Blaziken will KO you. If we see Blaziken in the metagame, there's not much fire. Of course, Charizard will one-hit KO you. But like Hydreigon probably won't. Suicune probably won't. So it's interesting. Very interesting indeed. I think Lucky Ice Pops is definitely needed here. But the Poncho stuff is really what I'm curious about. In fact, I also still only want to play one Gimmighoul. I really do. But we'll play 2, why not? Let's just play X-Speed. Well, you know what? I don't think we play X-Speed. Here's the reason. Because if we're playing double Dialga, double Gimmighoul, if Gimmighoul's in the active spot, we can just maybe let Gimmighoul go down. Although that doesn't really seem great, because then when Dialga comes in, we would rather let Dialga just get KO'd and then go into Gimmighoul and kind of sweep. So I kind of do maybe want one Gimmighoul in the deck. I'm still on the fence about that, which is kind of crazy. Do we want double Poncho either? Because we're only going to bench one Gholdengo. Interesting, man. Very interesting indeed. I'm cutting a Gimmighoul. I really am. I know it sounds crazy, but I am. I'm going to cut the Gimmighoul. Double Ice Pop, double Research, double Pokeball, double Copycat. Do we want double Poncho? I'm actually going to cut a Poncho and just put in like a... I guess I don't even know. I really don't know. This is a tricky one. This is a tricky one for me. I don't really know what we want to play. Maybe like we just go, maybe we go for a slowing strategy. Maybe we try to slow our opponent down. Like we'll play a red card here. Maybe we just play a Sabrina. It's probably enough supporters there. I don't think we need red. I don't think we need Cyrus. I definitely don't need Cyrus. Interesting. Maybe we play one Poncho, one Giant Cape. I think Cape's probably just better than Core Barrier for most scenarios here in this deck. What do we have? 3 cards left. What do we play? What do we play with this deck? It's actually really curious. I don't know. the 5 Pokemon in the deck is hilarious, but I think that's the way you go here. Honestly. What do we want? Like, I guess maybe an X-Speed in case we just lead Gimmighoul. We'll just play one X-Speed in the deck because, like, maybe, who knows? What else is there that could possibly be even useful for this deck? That's what's crazy to me. The strategy just doesn't need anything, which is what's really interesting, is that we're not playing rare candies. We don't need Cyrus. Like, we don't need damage modification. Like, that's what's really crazy about Gimmighoul here, or Gholdengo, rather, which is just an interesting thing to think about. We just double red card. I don't know, man. I mean, maybe Mars. Like if we Mars to 1, I don't know. I really don't know. Kind of crazy. This is kind of a crazy. 2 cards left. What could we possibly put into the deck? Am I spacing on something? I don't think anything else is really that valuable. Let's just look at other cards in the deck and add multiple copies of them, I guess. Like, do we want another X-Speed for the 1 Gimmighoul? I don't know. Maybe we just play double Gimmighoul. But I mean, if we lead Dialga, then Pokeballs will most likely give us Gimmighoul. But I guess we need a Gimmighoul on the bench, right? Always. So let's just play double Gimmighoul and double X-Speed or something. I don't know. It's a really tricky deck. I don't know exactly where we go here with this deck, but I think the strategy is very, very, very simple. And you just do it just like this, quite frankly. I think you just either go Dialga or you swap them for Meowth. The thing about Meowth is that, like, it's only going to, at the minimum, it's going to buy you 2 turns. And that's if your opponent gets lucky on the coin flips. Like, will that ever equate to being more than Dialga? You know what I mean? Because if you go first and you lead Meowth, I mean, Meowth does draw you cards if you do attach to it. But I don't know if you ever really want to attach. Like, that's the weird part about this deck in particular. Yeah. And I don't even know if I would change anything if I were to swap this to Meowth. Like, maybe I would cut like the cape and run like double Poncho or something. It's a very strange thing. I don't think I'm missing anything like right off the top of my head. There's nothing like that I really think we should be playing that we're not playing. Again, you don't need Cyrus. We don't need rare candy. I don't think Rocky Helmet's useful. I think you're playing either Poncho or Giant Cape or a mix of both. You know, we got X-Speeds in there in case we lead Gimmighoul's to retreat into Dialga. Of course, Ice Pops you got to play in this deck for sure, just to sometimes give Dialga an extra turn. You know, Sabrina to maybe stall the early game. Red card is just a disruptive card here. We got double research, double Pokeball, double copycat. None of the stadium cards I think are that useful here. I guess maybe you could kind of throw an Arven in here. I think Arven could be a decent card because it could grab Ice Pops, it could grab your Ponchos or your Giant Capes. Like maybe we throw Arven in here. I don't really know. It's a really great question. I think double X speed would be very consistent with double Pokeball, double copycat. So honestly, I kind of just like this. Like, I know it's crazy. Like, maybe we do just cut the cape and run double Poncho just to be like that consistent. We're just playing a bunch of 2-ofs. But honestly, like that's kind of my early draft here. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking, honestly, for Gholdengo. Do you guys have any other concepts? Like, I know Meowth is interesting. I just don't know if it's ever worth playing Meowth over Dialga. I don't know if it is. Dialga's living one hit from like anything anyway. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Dialga also does some chip damage, which could be valuable. Maybe Meowth is better. It just requires testing. But I think if you take a look at this deck list here, I think you just play this. And then you either swap Dialgas or Meowths. Whatever just ends up being better. If we're playing Meowth, you know, we probably keep the X speeds. I don't think you need Lucky Ice Pop, I guess, if you're playing Meowth. So you can maybe just play some other consistency cards, but there's really no other way to generate additional energies to Gholdengo because they have to be metal energy. So you're either playing Dialga. There is a Probo Pass card. I guess maybe we should have taken a look at this, but I don't think this Probo Pass card is good, so I don't really want to play it. Metallic Turbo. So it's the same thing as Dialga. It's just a single prize Pokemon. Yeah, I don't think you ever play Probo Pass. I think Dialga is just better. Because you're going into a stage 2 to kind of to end the game, like to kind of sweep through the deck. So I don't think Probo Pass is ever better than Dialga, quite frankly. Unless is there a broken Nose Pass? I don't think so. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I'm feeling. That's kind of what I feel about it. Honestly. All right, let's wrap up this video with one last thing, which I think we probably should mention, which is going to be Nemona. We have to talk about Nemona because this is somewhat a relevant strategy. This makes Palmot do 80 damage, 80 more damage to your opponent's active EX. And again, we do have a new Palmot coming. We don't know what that is, but we do already have a Palmot in the game. And this is Palmot. So this is a Pokemon 140 HP stage 2, double lightning in the attack cost. But it's also a single prize Pokemon. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack, your opponent's Pokemon do 20 damage, or from your opponent's Pokemon, you deal 20 to the active. So it's kind of like got like a Rocky helmet attached to it. This is an interesting strategy. It's only 70 damage though, which kind of scares me a little bit about Palmot. And I don't know if anything like this could really hold up into something like a, of course, what am I talking about? Like a Hydreigon, right? Because 70 to a Hydreigon just isn't enough. And I like how it's 20 on the reverse, so that 70 can become a 90, can become a 110 with the, you know, with the Rocky helmets if we were to add it. I'm just trying to think of like, I mean, 70 plus 80 is 150 to an EX card. So the strategy isn't that bad, but this is like infinitely going to be just less useful than running Hydreigon, because Hydreigon, you know, doesn't need the supporter card. You know what I mean? And that's like a big thing when I'm thinking of Palmot. I'm just kind of trying to determine its like viability in the metagame. But we did get a new Palmy to play with this. So this is, where is it? Right here, Random Spark. So this does 10 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Now this is cool because this Palmy can lead pretty directly into a Cyrus combo on the following turn. But the issue, of course, is that, you know, we can't Cyrus and play Nemona on the same turn. So I think that this Palmy will likely lead into the new Palmot a little bit better, which is kind of why I don't really want to build a Palmot deck, because we just don't know what the new Palmot is. But it might be relevant. You know what I mean? I don't know. It might be something different than the one we already have. Not the one that we already have is bad. It's just, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. So I think there's a lot of potential with Nemona. Plus 80 is crazy. 80 plus damage is a really big deal, and that's going to allow you to probably KO a lot of things, but we just don't know what the new Palmot's going to look like. So I'm going to refrain from building a Palmot deck here in this video, because we just don't have the new Palmot and we know it's coming. So I think it's kind of just worth waiting on it, quite frankly. We're also going to be getting a Skeledirge and Quaxly's final evolution. We don't know what those are yet, so we're going to have to just wait and see, but you know, we'll theory craft when those cards get announced. So yeah, let's wrap up the video here. It's already 35 minutes, you know what I mean? Keep in mind, guys, this set is actually releasing tomorrow on the 25th, 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is actually, what is that, 8 p.m. Eastern? This says the 26th, but the trailer, I think at the end, if I play this, I think at the end of the trailer, it told us right here. Oh, this says Thursday 26th, but somebody sent me an image saying that they listed it as the 25th at, yeah, the 25th at 5 p.m. Pacific, which means tomorrow at 8 p.m. the set releases, which also means that tonight, most likely, sometime later in the night, we will be getting the update actually dropping for the game, which means we will be getting data mines for all of the cards. So tonight or tomorrow, you might be getting a video about a full set review, which is going to be really, really fun. So stay tuned for that. We'll be live tomorrow night for the set release. I might not be able to make it in time for the set, but shortly after or around 8:30 to 9 o'clock is when we'll go live at the very latest. So we'll be live tomorrow, whether or not it's on time for the set release. That's one thing or not, but it should be pretty fun. So stay tuned to the live stream. And that's the video. Comment down below if I missed anything, if there's a particular strategy that you want to talk about, or if you found either of the decks that we built in today's video interesting. Shout out to PokemonMeta.com. Don't forget to go register for PMPT number 22, our first tournament of this new season. Lucky Ice Pop Band, $200 cash on the prize. We'll link to register down in the description below. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Let's get out of here. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And yeah. Bye.